like to do is just very quickly, since we did just pass that lower cost, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just take just a minute to include the decreased cost into the budget.
Please do that.
And look in just a second.
We'll know exactly what we got.
I went ahead and anticipated that. I've also got printed copies. The change that we just approved lowered the health insurance across all the departments, and I had it where I could change it real easily. So the number should have been lowered by the difference between the $55,000 that was projected and the remaining. I've got a copy here for the group. So the actual budget number, let me get organized here. The proposed budget amount was, that we actually approved on our work session on the 15th, I believe was $10,068,310. When you work in that lower cost, the proposed budget comes down to $10,041,247, which obviously changes the shortfall and then all the way through. I do have, let me go ahead and do this right here while we had it. I do have one change on the agency page. I got looking at the hospital, and to keep the hospital from an increase, the rollback on the hospital is actually 0.918. And so there's assuming that we're going to go with the rollback on the hospital, 0.918. That's an assumption there. It didn't change our budget because that's a separate bill on the tax bill. So we are now back to our, we have our final numbers on insurance, and we have you've got a schedule in the book, our budget calendar, and I'd like to just address that for just a moment. In order to stay on track with our budget process, and if everybody can put on the budget calendar tonight, our critical junction tonight is to have a consensus agreed, but all possible, on the millage rate. That millage rate is one of the components that's for the required advertising.
Well, Mike, let's go through and let's go ahead and get a motion to approve the budget with the new insurance rate, and then we can discuss that. So we had a motion on the floor at our last meeting to go with the total budget of $10,068,310.
Yes.
So we need to have another motion based on the insurance change of the actual figures of $10,041,247.
Correct.
So is there a motion?
I'll make that motion that we accept the budget of $10,041,247.
Okay. Motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Henry, second by Commissioner Luke. Any further discussion?
Question or some discussion that I had. I know when I think it may be dangerous.
Wait, say that again?
I know when I think sometimes it may be dangerous.
Oh, okay. Yeah, make sure I understood what you said.
If we, and I know that the budget, and if we look at the millage rate, I know we've separated them, but, I had an idea and I wanted to run it by y'all. I know we've talked a lot about, and I know I have, about possibly increasing the services as far as ambulances or fire stations and stuff. And so I mentioned that to Mike and also mentioned that to the Chief Finch as well day before yesterday. And so I asked him to do some number crunching real quick based upon an idea that I had. And so I know that Chief Finch has been doing that. I would if possible, ask the chief to come up and go over some of the things that some of the numbers that he crunched for me. Would that be a problem?
Well, I'm thinking about this. Is we want to change this motion of the 10,041,247? Will that number change?
Yes.
Well, then we have to either vote this motion up or down, and
No.
then we'll have to entertain for a new motion for a different budget amount. Am I correct to say that?
Actually, what you're doing now is you're approving a consensus or proposed budget. The budget isn't final until you actually go through the process of advertising and all the things that gotta be done. So the budget can morph during that period. I assume you haven't done advertising on the budget yet.
Yeah, we're prepared to.
Yeah.
But depending on what,
It's not a final budget until that's done, is my point. So you still have time to up or down it, depending on, and a lot of it, then why have the public hearings if you don't retain it?
Right.
You think about it.
but before I'd like to vote on this one, I'd like the chief to come up and present that, because that may change that number. I don't want to vote up or down yet until he presents that, unless I have to.
Well, remember though, what you're doing, all it is a proposed budget, so you're not really voting for the final budget.
This is just discussion.
Right,
This
so
is
not
part
until
of
we
this
go through the
discussion.
public hearing, then we'll adopt the budget.
Right,
And
you'll
then,
have to adopt it after you've done the public hearings.
Right. But what my concern is, I've got a motion on the floor for 10,041,247. And
I tend to agree with you. Go ahead and do your proposed budget consensus number, and then it's perfectly fine for any of you to change it. I mean, you don't want to get in the habit of doing that too much, but from a practical standpoint, you have the legal authority to do that.
And I'm sorry, I just came up with this idea
But
day before yesterday, so otherwise,
I'm saying is, let's go ahead and carry this motion out, and then we can listen to him,
Yeah.
and then that can be introduced as part of the,
It's part of
Proposed
your, and part of-
budget.
and part of your thought process in determining the final budget that you'll vote on after the public hearing.
All right, you got a motion and a second on.
all in favor of that motion, second, show by the raise of hand. Pass unanimously. Now, you want to,
if I can present that, yes.
okay.
And I wish I would have came up with this idea earlier. I apologize that I didn't think about it until the day before yesterday.
Unanimous. Go ahead.
All right, so the topic came up is the difference between the two millage rates being about $200,000. What could we do with $200,000? The first idea was to go ahead and put an ambulance up at Farrah, staff it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as a third frontline ambulance. The total cost, Mike and I have talked about a few different things. It's a hard cost to nail down because you don't know who you're hiring, what their benefits are going to be. Are going to be, full-time or part-time employees. But a rough estimate is that I came up with was 276 just as a personnel line.
276, just personnel?
276,000. Yes.
Just for personnel.
Mhm.
We've got the equipment up there, but will they have the ambulance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Let me add
I wish I would have made copies for all this.
let me add the operating costs.
There's a
on top
few
of
operating
it
costs.
before we talk about equipment.
Okay.
There's really three pieces here. You got and Chris has done a lot of work on this in a short amount of time. So your 276 was the total manpower,
Both
labor.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
just labor.
And there are additional operating costs, let's face it, so I did two different looks at it, Commissioner Salmon, and the first one, I just took the ledgers that we have now, year to date, removed the chief cost, annualized that, and divided it by 2.
Okay,
That's not exactly right, but that's the
close.
starting point, again, on a short amount of time. That would be just for operating costs. That would add other things to it, fuel,
that's great.
insurance, you got some small items as well, supplies. That number would be $304,000 per year when you add, on top of this $276, when you add the other cost to it. Then another look at it, I took this $276 and I tried to just go and pick out some things that we do know. We don't need another license. There are some things that won't be have to be replicated. A little lower number. That number is $295. So apparently it is roughly around the $300,000 range, especially with the labor being $276. That's the majority of it. So
Okay.
operating costs, before you talk about capital, is just an approximate number is roughly $300,000, and I'll turn it back over to Chief.
Alright, so,
So that,
So what's the
that
total?
300,000 is
Per year,
encompasses the 276?
276 and supplies and
Okay, so
fuel.
it's not 276 plus
Oh, no,
304.
300,000 total, including the
Personnel and operating.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
oh. Alright, so, just a few things to consider. Station 7 doesn't have living quarters, so that would have to be outfitted for living quarters, obviously, bathroom, day room, stuff like that. Also keep in mind too, by going with this type of plan, we'd be using our spare trucks. So if any of our trucks were to fail, then we wouldn't have an ambulance to put them in for that day or for however long the repair took. Now on the positive side, by doing that, you do also reduce the response time to Farrah and Shady Dale, which is currently anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, depending on where they live. It's just one of our long hauls for response. Extra personnel for obviously daily operations. We get more ISO points for having full-time people compared to volunteers. Going back to that, where a paid person is a full person and a volunteer counts as a third. So it obviously would help with the ISO rating.
The ISO rating, we only missed 4 by how many points?
We missed going to a 4 by 4 points.
Okay.
So that is looking at that. I was also asked to, what if we only staffed an ambulance during our peak hours or basically weekends or busier time when people are at home and stuff like that? If you were to staff an ambulance, this is just personnel line, 3 days a week for 24 hours a day, say Friday and Saturday as an example, would be $116,132 roughly. If you were to staff an ambulance only 2 days a week extra, 24 hours a day, it would be $80,811 for 2 days.
8,000?
$80,811.
That's staffing,
2 days of
salaries loaded.
Yes.
Yeah.
that's just
3
salaries.
days, 116.
Yeah.
There would be some operating costs added to that.
A little bit. The other item that came up was about adding more fire stations. I'm just going to read you what I wrote to Mike. Improvements, per our conversation regarding improving services with limited monies, where the end user, our citizens, would see an improvement. When ISO rating is published, 2 main factors are looked at to determine the insurance premiums for a policy by the insurance company. 2 factors are, the property must be within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant, and secondly, the property within 5 road miles of a fire station. Properties that do not meet that criteria results in an ISO rating of 10, which means basically no fire coverage. Not that we're not going to send them a fire truck, it's just the way the insurance company looks at it, no fire coverage. If a property is within 5 road miles and has no hydrants, they are giving a rating called 5X. 5X is the new rating that replaced 9. So 10 being the worst rating you can get, which means no fire coverage in the insurance world. If we put a fire station within 5 road miles, they would go to a rating of 5X. So with that being said, we called the insurance company today, and they couldn't give us any figures because of the way their new system runs. They can only do it by address. Now we found some old comparisons, and these are from Georgia Farm Bureau, 2006. What they gave us is if your home is worth $100,000 and you went from a 10 to a 5X, you would save $250 a year on 2006 numbers. If your home is $200,000, you would save an average of $602. If your home was $300,000, you would save about $901 a year off your insurance premiums. So the reason we brought this up, then that also brings up the discussion, and I think the easiest way to do is just let y'all look at it. This map right here, and it's hard to see, I wish I would make some copies. But if you look at it, anything that's real white is in our county where there are more, where it takes us longer to travel. More than, you're outside the 5 road miles of the fire station. So as you look at it, there's two main areas. Obviously down here by Clay Road, and then obviously up here by Liberty Church. So there's two different areas. If you were to put a station to either one of those, pretty much would take out the majority of those white spots and move people's insurance from 10 to a 5X. And a $100,000 house, that would be $250 a year. Another comparison.
And the biggest white area looks like it's out here by Clay Road.
Clay Road, and then the second one is up here by Liberty Church. Another comparison, I know this is going to be kind of hard. I picked two spots. There's a spot called AAA Farms, which is up there up off Murder Creek. And what we did is we took the mileage from the nearest fire stations on how to get there. You leave Jackson Lake and head out there to Murder Creek. It's roughly 10.1 miles. From Station 3 in Monticello is 10.1 miles. From Station 2 is 11 miles. And from Station 8, or Station 7, I'm sorry, it's 3.8 miles. Now, how many stations?
3 miles.
Right, going into there. If you look at the same scenario, Eaton Baptist Church down here, obviously our area down there, we have a longer haul. The closest fire station right now to that location is 12 miles away. And then the second end fire station to that location is 15.1 miles. And then Hillsborough is a third end station, which is 22.1 miles to get there. So you have a long haul to get trucks there to a fire or to a scene. Alright, so with that being said, we ran some figures on how much it would cost to build a station and staff it with the bare necessities, the bare minimums, to be able to count that as a station, as a ISO fire station, and get credit for the people that live out there to be able to get their credit on their insurance. Now these are just best guess estimates. Most of these pricings are just kind of like internet-based pricing when we talk about trucks and equipment, just list prices and stuff like that. So cost for a new fire station, concrete pad and steel building, type 2 type building, which is what the stations we have now, steel shell, estimate of $75,000. Put a well and septic tank, you could probably count on around about $12,000. Finish inside the station with an office area, bathroom, shower, something like that. You're looking at about $8,000. Bay heater, $2,000. HVAC. That can be argued back and forth.
Yeah, you got to get us, you're going through it too fast for me to write out.
Yeah.
You need to get us copies of that.
Well, it's something that too that we're gonna have to study. I mean, I can't,
I can't study it unless I see it.
Right.
I mean, it's something that we're gonna have to study and we can't.
I understand, but this is just an estimate. Just a brief question, or not question, statement. And then 4,000. So when you look at it, you're roughly around $100,000 to build a station, just the station itself. To get a truck with the equipment, if you were to buy a used truck, say a 2000 newer engine or so, you can probably pay around $60,000. The equipment is $20,000. SCBAs are unfortunately $5,000 a piece, so that's another $20,000. You have to have a minimum of 4. So you're right around, to build a fire station, you're right around about $200,000 to build a fire station. Is what I'm kind of getting at.
And man it, or and
The equipment, station and equipment, about $200,000, give or take a little less. These are, list prices and best estimates. So Anything else you got?
That's no land acquisition.
That's-
no-
yeah, I'm sorry.
No grading.
No land acquisition, and didn't include the cost per grade. That's one thing I don't know about the land, I couldn't get that quick.
That would be additional
Right, that'd be additional.
for donated.
And then also, there is a program by the Department of Corrections where you can cut down your labor costs by about roughly 40% of the project if you pay for the inmates to come out and be supervised by Department of Corrections through a state program to do the labor for building.
And we use that at the station.
We use that at the station.
And it worked real well.
Mhm.
Okay,
So how would that work? You pay,
I couldn't find any records. I went by what people had told me, and they said it was about, to build out Station 3 inside, it was about $2,000 is what they had to pay Department of Corrections,
so,
for the superintendent.
okay, but we're paying, what kind of labor is that paying for?
In the $70,000 for the building. If I remember correctly, it was roughly $20,000 in labor.
Okay.
Could you get the labor to construct the steel? I know they did the.
Yes, they
internal.
do steel too.
They also do steel?
You just have to buy the material.
And that labor is provided by who? We hire somebody to do that, or?
It depends, the numbers that I gave you real quick are based on having it contracted out. You could save money, and I can't give you definite numbers because I don't know any dealings about this program. They just say that roughly you get about a 40% discount, so to speak, you can count on, because
Chris-
labor is usually your biggest cost.
this whole thing is gonna have to be really studied, and I think we need to move back, Mike, to the budget, either the millage rate. Because what I heard from the beginning was that if we go with the current millage rate, then it will bring in an additional $200,000.
Correct.
Correct. If we go with the rollback, it would lessen, which would be $200,000 short, which means then we use more from fund balance. So it either the 16,446 or the 15,945, and then if we're gonna go with this proposal, then I think it's gonna be a lot of other studies gotta be determined before we decide what we're gonna do. So we either need to nail down tonight our millage rate, and then we can get into that other part later. And if we want to go back, because I don't think the budget amount is going to change, it's the amount we're gonna use from fund balance, one way or the other.
The budget would change, well, it would go up, if you did that, it would go up $200,000, which would be the difference in it, or either we pull $200,000 for fund balance, either way.
And that's what I'm getting to,
Because that would be overage, so it'd be a wash, looking at which way you put it, either on the budget or from fund balance.
It depends on which one of these options. we
Yeah,
go with.
because
You're
you're
looking at
Two different options there.
funding,
if you go with the 16,446, meaning that you're going to get $200,000 in taxes revenue, and you'll use less fund balance to balance the budget. Or if you use the 15,946, it's gonna bring in $200,000 less in taxes, and you use $238,000 to balance it. So,
yeah, we just got presented with two different things, and those two different things total $500,000.
right. And that's what I'm getting at. So that's a whole different ballgame that we've got to look at.
But that's not taking both of them. I mean, but that was, I asked him
We
to
just got
look,
presented two different things.
I asked him to present those because you could do one option. Like I said, personally, I'm leaning towards opening Station 7 with the ambulance and staffing it. Because if you get Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for 3 days, that's 116.
But
That puts
my
3 in.
question to the board is, do we need to go ahead and clear up whether we're gonna go with the current millage rate or go with the rollback? And then we decide where the fund is gonna come from if we decide to go that route. Am I correct to say that? So,
Yes, this is a big pill to try to swallow right here at the last minute.
last minute, man.
Like I said, I wish I would came up with it earlier, but I didn't.
But-
But at the same time, we have an opportunity to utilize the third ambulance and staff Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which are the busiest days, up on 142, where the next population also with that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they can also rotate between stations as well to look at the equipment at the other station. So if they're just sitting around, they could possibly drive down to Hillsborough and stay down there an hour or two. So
Craig, I hear what you're saying, but I think what we need to do tonight is to clear up the millage rate, one way or the other, and we can determine later if that's the route we want to take.
Right.
If we want to add another ambulance, either by taking money from fund balance, either way, because it's gonna be either way, you're gonna have to take fund balance based on either millage rate.
And then, but then, you know, that's true, and then we got two different options. I mean, if, looking at both of those options, if we decided to go with one of them, I'd rather see us provide fire service to people that don't have fire service. I mean, we already got fire service up there, so why ignore the people over there that don't have any fire service?
We ain't ignoring it. You talking about some big numbers right there that just came out. That second option's big numbers. You take that first number to build a station, and then you add this, and that's presuming that all this stays within these bounds. You pull the trigger on something like that, and that 304 goes to 504, you got a heck of a budget increase every year, and you got to man this. You got to increase that budget by that amount every year to keep this thing going. And if you're only servicing 15, 20 calls a year out of that, you divide that by what you got sunk in the hole over there, and you got a heck of a wad.
And that's one of the things why I say it's gonna be more study, because you gotta look at the call volume where.
This is a big bite. This is a big old bite.
That's
right
why
there.
there's also the second
That's-
option of the fire
Yeah.
station, because that does, I mean, it does carry out a little bit extra cost, but not obviously as
For
much as
future future service, it is excellent to go ahead and start having this discussion and having these numbers. But for what we're doing, for all intents and purposes right now, there's no way we can entertain any of that right now, in my opinion. That's just, it's a great idea, and it's something we need to look at, but it's a concept.
And that's where we need to, when we start our strategic planning, we need to start planning those type activities and saying what type of service we're gonna offer into these particular areas. And that's something it's not gonna take it within the next 2 weeks, because we got 2 weeks to nail down this, one way or the other, so.
Thank you for, I mean, that was no
That was
no small task.
Yeah,
Thank
not
you
a day or so, it wasn't.
for crunching that, and we can keep that. I can't speak for us all. We all want a copy of all that breakdown, just for discussion purposes
Yeah.
later on.
And review and to be able to make a just decision on where do we wanna do, or put things. And I appreciate you taking the time to do it.
No problem, I appreciate y'all.
And then share it with us, you know, that you got it.
I will.
Okay.
I'll make
Thanks.
thank y'all for allowing me that.
Yep.
I wish I would've came up with it, or I apologize for that.
Yeah, I wish you had too.
I wish I
because
would have too, so, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying, but here to say a surprise, me a surprise. But anyway, we need to
Let's
tonight
get the
to
numbers.
approve a digest millage rate of the two numbers, 16,446 or the 15,945.
I'd like to make a motion. We've only got two numbers up there, but at one time we had three numbers. And I'd still like to make a motion that we go to the 1 mil cutback to 15.446 and take the balance that we need out of fund balance.
Okay, that's the motion.
That's a motion.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Henry to use a 15,446, reducing the bill rate by 1 mil. Is there a second?
I thought that number was 15,440, actually.
The one that we used previously was 15.440.
Okay.
So,
I thought it was just 1 mil off the other, but 1,440.
okay, 15.
But the amount, to do that, you need to throw in the amount of extra fund balance it would take on top of that 238. I don't remember what it was. Since we took it out.
It'd be about another $200,000.
It was 462,032 maybe?
I was asked to remove it, so I removed it.
I'm just asking you to put back on.
Let's see.
All right, the motion on the floor by Commissioner Henry, is there a second? Is second? Being none, motion died for the lack of second. There,
I can't put my hands on it. Can any of y'all put your hands on your, sheet that Lynn Bentley had, that breakout?
No.
Yes. That's when we still had it.
is there a motion, another motion for the millage rate?
Trying to find the revenue, Doug?
No, I'm looking at this thing.
Difference in the cost.
Yeah. I'm just using my own comparable for what you're talking about, Bruce. My own comparable is a $4 difference in taxes, going from the rollback down to the 15,440. There's only a $4 difference in the tax amount on the tax bill, but you got $200,000 difference in cut to fund balance. That's the only reason it don't jive for me.
Is there a motion on the floor for the millage rate?
I make a motion that we go with the rollback rate of 15.945.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Liu to go with the rollback rate of 15.945. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Commissioner Henry. Any further discussion?
If we go with the 15.94, then we're gonna have to come up with how much? 238, 585?
Yep.
So that's taking that out of our reserves,
Coming from the fund balance.
fund balance. So that's gonna be depleting that, and
It's actually not. You're actually gonna end up, if that 559 is remotely close, you're still gonna be putting about $320,000 in the fund balance. While you do that.
so how much would that give us? Is that gonna give us 6 months, 2 months, 4 months?
It's gonna bump us up toward the direction we need to go. We're not going to encompass that in one budget cycle. We're gradually getting there,
Process.
year by year. We're gradually getting there.
Going from
But
almost zero.
that's where the balance is, and gradually getting there to a projected reserve, but also doing our best to offset property tax increases when we can't provide more services in doing so.
But at the 16.44, we would only need 39,065. And then based on what Lynn give us, with her, even hers, her value increasing 43,500, she would pay $9 more. Is that what I'm reading? $9?
Yes.
Yeah, she's in
That's less than the
conservation
cost
too.
of a lunch.
It's not apples to apples when you're talking about folks that are in a different situation, in a different
Exactly.
life situation. You got some people out there, you got a few people out there that have gotten huge, way bigger increases than this on their property tax bills. Makes a difference. It makes a difference to me as John Q. When I get out from behind this desk and I get on the other side, I'm gonna want this group up here to try to help me in any way they can. If it's $10, on my tax bill, help me all you can, because I'm definitely not getting the bang for my buck. I try to view every bit of this, because we throw big numbers around up here, and it's real easy to, well, look, I mean, just like that $27,000 we're saving on. I mean, when you're looking at $10 million, $27,000 is, drop in the bucket. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I don't ever want to get numb to the fact that $10 sometimes means getting back and forth to work before the next payday rolls around. That's the way I think about this, and that's the way I try to. This is just for my seat. That's my reason for wanting to go to rollback.
Any other discussion?
I mean, we gotta have as much fund balance as we can generate.
Like I
And we
just
keep
told
taking
you,
it
Like I
away.
just
You
told
said
you,
that we'd be bouncing it up, but, how much air is in that ball?
as long as you're adding to it every year, you're using less. We used $488 last year to offset property tax increases.
Current year.
Yes, this one.
Current year.
So, and for 238, so we're adding to it, and we're also decreasing the amount that we use. And if our digest will grow, if the day comes that our digest actually starts to grow again, we won't be using those numbers.
Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion to go with the rollback at the 15.94 by Commissioner Luke, second by Commissioner Henry? Show by the raise of hand. 2, 4, all opposed? 2 against?
Mine, like I said, if we go with the other one, we could get a station, but, that's where I'm at right now. Or either provide ambulance service.
You have an extension. Vote no on?
Put me down as a no.
Okay.
I wanted to go rollback rate, but I believe that providing a station which would reduce the ISO rating, which would be savings right in their pocket, off their property taxes, off of their property premiums, would be more than enough to justify that cost.
The only thing I would caution you on, Craig, is these are projections. This thing could get really fat, really quick, and you're going off of.
That 304 is doing it full time.
That 304 is a number right now. That 304 is not reality right now.
But that's doing it full time number for personnel.
There are so many factors. It is a great idea. There are so many factors that have to be worked through on that than to just say, I'm abstaining from this and that based on that number right there. That number right there is not the end of the story.
Well,
I realize that.
okay.
And we know how many people live in that area that are gonna be affected by it.
Just what I talked about a minute ago. That's just,
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Craig, there's 2 for the motion, 2 against. Either for or
I
against.
said no.
So 3 against. He says no. Is there another motion on the floor? 'Cause we gotta decide on the millage rate tonight to be advertised. Am I correct?
We need to decide tonight.
Is there another motion?
I'll make a motion that we go with 16.446.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner DJ, go with the 16.446. Is there a second? I'll second for discussion. Now, I have no problem in looking at other fire station or whatever, but it's only gonna mean that we're gonna be taking more money from fund balance, or we're gonna get in an additional $200,000, which you use less from them. And I can't say that we're gonna put a fire station at 142 or at Clay Road for $200,000, because that's all it's gonna mean. Are we gonna take other monies to be able to fit that in, to, because we don't know what a concrete number's gonna be.
That would be something that's in addition to what we've got currently in this budget anyway.
in our financial situation right now, that is a huge undertaking to try to talk about in 10 minutes.
Like I said, last time we met, we got together, and when a large part of this group came in 4 years ago, we thought we were gonna be able to make some changes. And we've done some things and we've made some improvements, but we don't have the money to do the things that we had hoped we could do when we came in here, and we still don't have that money.
Because our digest haven't changed.
Right.
Our total spending is the same as it was in 2007. Total, everything. 2007, our total expenditures were 10.15. Last year, audited numbers, total spending, that's including everything, 10.2. In 10 years, we're still spending the same as we were. And that's with additional policing that was incurred, of additional, just with the sheriff's budget, almost $879,000.
Right. And we, like
So
I said, we've made some improvements, but we don't have the money to do all the things that we want to do, or that I would like to see done. The money isn't there, we just keep spending.
But some of it, we can take a small step towards bettering response time, make sure that we at least got one ambulance in the county at one, if we've got 2 transports going, and high avenue times. But that's me.
Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, second, show by the raise of hand. All opposed? 2 for, 2 against. You abstain or you not voting? It's gotta be one way or the other, Craig. You owe it to your constituents.
Well, I know that. Like I said, I heard these numbers tonight, so. But I still think it's valid, and I would be, Doug mentioned his would go up $4 difference. Mine would be $4 difference. And I think that $4, that wouldn't impact me directly, that would impact the people up on the north end of town. But since my values went up, I'd be paying for that. And the people on the north side of town would get those extra benefits.
You're gonna pay more. The people who got increases this year, staying at 16,446, are gonna pay more than they paid last year. Some of them $200-300 more.
Yep. And
And what are they getting
they
for it?
won't get anything else for it.
Mm-mm.
If we went with ambulance service, they'd get that. If we went with the fire station, they'd get
Not
reduced
everybody's
that.
gonna need an ambulance service though.
I understand that.
We, at this point, it is a wonderful concept, but at this point, we don't have people standing on the street corner that I know of tapping their foot going, I need an ambulance and I can't get one. I've not had any of those calls, and I mean, it's a great future plan. It's a great future plan. But we gotta deal with the reality that we've got right now. And I think every opportunity we take to whittle some off of that millage rate, if it's, just as what we talked about a few minutes ago, if it's $10, it's a win-win with the 15,945 for me. You still get to add the fund balance, you still get to whack a little bit off that millage rate.
I vote yes, 16.44.
Probably gonna need another motion, Mr. Chairman,
Wow.
if you got 16.44 on the table.
Well, it's 16.446.
That's the
446.
motion that's on the table.
Yeah, 16.446.
Are you good? All we gotta do is get a vote.
That was 2-2, and then went 3.
All the way around.
You call it again?
So you have Commissioner Journey, Commissioner Pillman, and Commissioner Salmon in favor.
All in favor of that motion of the 16.446, show by the raise of hand. Passed 3-2. All opposed, I'll ask for that again.
All opposed.
All opposed?
Can I do this?
All right. Now we have to go through the consensus to advertise.
Yeah, we are, Georgia code requires us to advertise, actually requires you to advertise where the budget can be located. We traditionally advertise the actual budget, so we need to have I need an agreement to advertise the budget summary that we just approved, a proposed, millage rate that we just talked about, in the 5-year history of the millage rate, and it has a lot of information, has taxes, levy, percent change, so it's the standard 5-year history report, and public hearings. When you do have a tax increase, then you are required to have 3 public hearings. So I need to line those up, get them started, and actually place advertisements in the paper next week.
And you have to have so many days between the,
It's a whole litany of items.
7 days between advertisement and meeting.
Yeah.
The first advertisement on budget has to go in the paper within 7 days of your proposed budget retention tonight.
Yeah.
So it has to be in the paper and advertised by 4/31, basically.
which is next week.
Now that's the budget.
Right.
That doesn't have anything to do with tax millage.
No.
Millage is a whole different set after
Whole
advertising.
different. So, we need a vote to go ahead and vote to
Authorize advertisement, required
require,
advertisement.
based on
Require
what we
advertising.
just approved.
Yes.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner DJ, second by Commissioner Sal. All in favor, show by the raise of hand. All opposed.
Mike, there's also one other requirement. There's a requirement that the budget be in the courthouse available to the public.
Yes.
So make sure that you got that in a good place where anybody
We
can
do.
get to it.
We do, yes.
Yeah.
And how?
That
This whole
unfortunately,
period.
well, just starting now is when it's legally
Yes.
required.
All right.
Do we need to set the hospital millage rate?
Do we do that when we set the millage rate?
Yeah, I think when you, after you do the advertisements that are necessary for the millage rate, at the conclusion of that is when you'll set the breakdown. You remember there's that quirky thing with the city versus the county that changes the millage a little bit?
Right.
But that hospital's in addition too.
Yeah.
It's separate. That doesn't include it.
You're gonna levy it, you need to levy it, you need to start the process.
I don't remember us having a separate vote for hospital millage last
I
year.
don't,
I don't think we have. That's one
The
year.
rollback for the hospital is .918,
You're not rolling back.
if you roll it back.
For the hospital.
well, you,
Don't you do that when you set the millage rate, adopt the millage rate?
you adopt the millage rate, and how you divide that millage rate up is another matter. Does 16 include the,
No.
No.
The hospital
That's why we
requested,
need
they
to make-
request 1 mil
yeah,
every
y'all
year.
been doing 1 mil a year for some time.
Last year, last year we passed the rollback on the hospital.
Well, just to be safe, I make a motion to do, the .918 mils for the hospital. Just to be on the safe side.
Vote on the motion to advertise?
Yes. It's 3-2.
Pretty soon.
Okay.
What was the motion on the hospital?
9.18.
Wait a minute now,
Point
we're
nine
gonna, keep the millage rate the same and then we're gonna cut the hospital?
You wanna put it that way? They'll get the same,
Okay.
Because of the different,
because the difference
That's
is.
cutting off your nose to spite your face, but okay.
it's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Salmon. Is there a second for the hospital? Point
918.
918. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner DJ. Any further discussion? All in favor, show by the raise of hand. All opposed? 3-2.
Another motion?
Huh?
Is there gonna be another motion?
It's carried, motion carried. So,
Somebody can make another motion. Okay.
you don't?
Can't make another motion when the motion's here. It's done.
Next, we have new business fund balance.
Yes. Y'all stick with me for a minute. This is something I came up with at the last minute. When we were talking to,
No more last minute stuff. I make that motion right now.
last week, how's that? Mark Hardison, am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Have recommended that we have some committed fund balance. And what I would like to do is set aside a building fund. At the end of every fiscal year, any unspent money goes into that committed fund balance. Still staying as fund balance, but then we are putting it into a building fund and we can start setting aside buildings, fire stations, the things that we feel like we need to be going in that direction on. We're still building our fund balance, it's just committed money. And, because we've got some recommendations for some buildings that need to be done. The, sheriff's renovating the jail, work at Public Works, Recreation, and now fire stations or modifying some of the existing fire stations to possibly take ambulances, those kind of things. But I'd like to see that money, instead of just rolling into fund balance, let's go ahead and start committing some of it, and then we'll work on our building fund as to which buildings we want to,
In other words, take a percentage to go to what?
I'd like for all of it to go, but I'd go with 85%. And then we're still building the existing fund balance, and then this is still building fund balance, we're just putting it committed, which is what, Mark had recommended.
Will that be 85% of the total fund balance, or is that?
No, 85% of everything that's left over at the end of the fiscal year.
The new
So it'd be
incremental fund
85%
balance.
of 520 this year, based on these
If it's
numbers.
520, yeah.
Well, we'd need, based upon Rhonda's recommendation, based upon Mark's recommendation as well, us being a smaller county, that we'd need about 50% for fund balance first. We'd have to get that number before we would start designating anything above and beyond that.
No,
For
we'll
building.
start committing some of it, and we're still building. If we only use 85% of it, we're still building.
I would like to interject.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I would think that after this year, after the change in fund balance in fiscal 17 rolls into fund balance, we would be very close to that, because I think after this, in 17, we're approaching the 6 month, as far as the fund balance needed for covering the operations. And then next year, I think that it would definitely be a possibility to be able to start our capital improvement fund. But again, I think we still need to reach our goal of the 6 months this year, and then implement this next year, if we're gonna try to reach our 6 month goal.
But what Bruce is saying is take 15% of this year's fund balance, and that will go toward your goal of reaching your 6 months. And then the other 85% goes into your capital improvement.
It's
Is
just the
that what you're
timing
saying?
of it. It's
Yeah.
just the timing of it.
You're
She's
recommending
saying,
that we
she's
wait a
saying
year
she
to do
wants
it.
to
Yes,
wait a
wait
year to put everything this year and get to that benchmark of the 6 months, and then next year.
Yes, I
begin
think we
doing
would
this.
meet that goal for the operations and then move forward
We got-
next year for the capital improvement.
We gotta start planning ahead.
Why don't we do, 50/50
Yeah,
at the end
50/50 would be real good, yeah.
at the end of this year, and it take us 2 years to get to, then once we get to our, then we just, all of it could go.
To different projects, yes, I agree.
What do y'all think? It's something to think about.
Well, I think it's a good idea, but also I know our auditor and our finance director said we need
You need an operating reserve.
to get there first. And if we're not gonna listen to them, then we don't need them.
Well,
Sorry, Ron, but if we're not gonna listen to you and listen to our auditor, what are we doing? Y'all are the ones who helped us look at the finances and say what we need. But I agree with Bruce, that's a great idea, but
I agree, I support that.
I agree with you on timing as well. Because that is a good idea to start looking for it afterwards. But I'd like to get it financially, physically good steward first before we go
I
forward.
think
That
It's
is
a great
being,
idea.
that is being good steward. You're setting aside money.
Well,
It's sitting out there.
Well, I'll agree with that too. We just heard Ron say that we wanna wait at least one more year before we do that, so that we've got that 6 months. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, but do we do it all in 1 year, or do we spread it out?
You can't do everything overnight. Some things you gotta work towards, work slowly, and we've been building this up.
And Rhonda, what would it help? What would it hurt if you say 2 years, if you went with a 50/50?
Well, again, it's just our decision, your decision, but I would like to see us get to the 6 months and set that as our goal, and then move forward to another goal.
All right, let's put that on our regular agenda. So think about what percentage and how we wanna do it. We'll make a decision at the regular meeting. Is that good?
That's good for me.
That's a good idea.
Anything else on fund balance?
That was it for now.
Next, county attorney items,
Odd thing, Mr. Chairman.
county manager item,
No,
citizen comments. Come on up, Mary.
I think I'm the only one on there.
I don't know, we'll see in a minute, but you up there, you be first. Mary Patrick.
really gonna say anything, but after listening, I wanted just to make a few comments. I forget how much exactly that fire station out here, Station 3 cost when we added on that office space. But it wasn't even $20,000.
40, over 40.
I thought it was more like 80 by the time they finished and everything else, so I agree with what Doug says. You got a lot of talking up here, and you got a lot of numbers up here, but when stuff starts happening, and I think that when James Gregory got up here, he might have told us it was gonna be $20,000. When they finished, it was a whole lot more than that, a whole lot more. So, those figures are interesting. The truck and equipment, he said we could get for $100,000. We just bought a new fire truck for $235,000, I believe. So if we're just gonna buy some old used piece of junk for $100,000, what good is that doing us when you start thinking about it like that? There's been a lot of conversation here about Lynn Bentley and her property tax only going up $9. I'd be interested to see how that really works. Somebody like me that has a house, based on what I just got in the mail on my assessment, my tax is gonna go up over $200.
Wait, look, I hate it.
Okay.
We said the difference between the millage rate, it was a $9 increase. Her taxes, based on her value increase, will go up $286.
Okay.
So, I want to clear you out.
Okay, because I was gonna say, but we also have to remember that she has property in conservation. Those of us that don't have property in conservation, just have a house and a little piece of land, it's gonna go up a lot more than people that have it in conservation. So I wonder how much of that includes her conservation property. So that could be very misleading right there. And the other thing is, Craig, you said that we have the same spending as 2007. We might, but in 2008, the market crashed. And in 2009, 10, and 11, if you look on the Board of Assessors website, you'll see that the digest went down over 30%. And the spending had to go down.
Spending in 2010 was 10.6 million. Not 10.2, but 10.6 million in 2010 based on unaudited expenditures.
No, that was some stuff that Karen brought up and put in there. Those aren't the audited figures. If you look at that, that's not the
2010,
thing.
Mary, that was under your board.
Let's not get into
It wasn't that, because our budgets were like in the $8 million range. And the taxes didn't go up during that time, but maybe 2% over 4 years. But the digest went down over 30%. Your digest has been going up a little bit every year, and it's gonna make a whole lot of difference when your digest is going up and your values are going up compared to when they're going down significantly. Because I know my property went down probably 40% from 07 or 08 down to about 2012. So it's a whole lot of difference, and sometimes y'all are talking numbers, but the numbers aren't apples to apples.
Thank you. Any other comment, public comment? That was the only signature I had.
Okay.
When are y'all gonna set the public hearing?
Yeah, thank you, Kathy.
It's gonna
When?
be advertised with,
I've got a schedule, I'll share it with you after the meeting.
I just know they're around there.
Yeah, we were going by the schedule that he has on.
Is there any other action needs to be taken? See here. Executive session? None? Is there a motion
So
to
you had
adjourn?
something?
I'll make the motion.
I thought Mike said he had something.
Motion on the floor by DJ to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, show by the raise of hand. To adjourn.
Mike, did you call out that so I could write it down?
Public hearings,
Toughest thing you've ever had.
June the 12th.
Wait a minute, 6/12?
It ain't no easier than it started out being, it ain't gonna get no easier.
What time?
9 a.m. and 6
Before we
p.m.
stay with it, boy, you can.
Yeah.
June the 22nd,
But somebody's gotta do it, why did you keep trying?
6 p.m.
That's it?
Good night, everybody.
Do we have to have a quorum at each of those meetings, right?
No, sir, not for public hearings.
Okay, just want to make sure because we've got a lot of people at work doing today.
For final adoption, you have to have it, only final adoption.
When is the date of the final adoption supposed to be?
June 22nd.
Essentially, Mr. Chairman,
At
all you
6
have
or
to have
5
somebody to
p.m.
start the meeting and stop it on the public hearing. It's not a meeting, it's just a
I
public
just wanna make sure, because go with the dates and then people can't show up.
Y'all at time.
Yeah, so that one is at 9 in the morning, we got a 9 AM and then a 6 PM.
Generally, good record. Gentlemen, ladies, it's been a pleasure. See you
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jim.
Don't let it be that long.
Appreciate you.
I could see all of you.
Been 6 months.
Enjoy your travels.
Busy.
Always, everything good.
Real good.
Hey, let's go back to
Listen on the leg, guys, dude. Yeah, I got asked to do it, so I did it.
Well, it's one of those things,
I was in,
probably got to do this.
Man, problem with
You
that.
did a good job with the copy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So like you doing it.
Something we can win at.